Hello, Canucks fans, and welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation, brought to you as always by the 2024 Toyota BZ4X. The BZ4X is Toyota's brand new all-electric SUV designed to go the distance for you and your family. The BZ4X is packed with Toyota's coolest tech, but it still has that trust SUV feel you know and love. And even though it's electric, it's capable of effortlessly conquering any terrain, whether it's rain, snow, mud, or your friends' questionable post-game recaps, or a question from Jeff Patterson. The BZ4X will get you through it all. And of course, we're coming to you from the iconic Wall Center in downtown Vancouver. Looking for your next meeting space? Contact the Wall Center for all your event needs at sales@wallcenter.com. Folks, media avails happened today. And I walked into the studio. I knew I was going to slip up, but I said as soon as I walked in here, I'm like, guys, let's try not to poke too much fun or put a spotlight on the exchange with Filip Hronek and Jeff Patterson. And then I saw the response online. Filip Hronek is the first player in Vancouver Canucks history for a reporter versus player feud for everybody to be siding with the reporter.
I know it's wild. And I mean, just seeing the interaction, it is funny because the entire year, nobody's asked for Hronek. Right. So, and Jeff's questions were fair.
No
right?
kidding.
He's just, and from Hronek's perspective, like all people are looking for is some insight into
context. If we're going to judge you as a player, which we are, we've done it a lot, and you're coming out and saying, no, I'm fine. I just fell off a cliff in the second half of the season. Okay, see you later. You're definitely not worth $8 million. I can't find a single person that isn't affiliated with Filip Hronek that thinks he's worth $8 million.
Well, not even that. It's just, we want to understand why, like from the player's perspective, right? Because as analysts, as media, as fans, we can all look at a player's on ice performance and we can have our theories, we can have our ideas, but the player actually living through it is always going to have the most insight and going to have the most information about what's potentially going on. And so we want to get the player's voice. Of course we want to, because it colors your opinion, colors your analysis. And it's just a little bit unfortunate that Hronek didn't really have anything that he wanted to share, which is well within his right.
Absolutely.
But then he can't complain if fans and media don't like that.
Absolutely. And let's get into it, because we did get some added context and we did get some stuff that's going to help us with our analysis of players from the end of season avails. I know we said Tocchet wins Jack Adams' first. We'll talk about that in a second because he spoke after with Patrik Allvin. We're going to focus on the player end of season media avails to start. And this segment is brought to you by our friends over at 4 Winds Brewing, more specifically their IPAs. We talk a lot about the 4 Winds Light because of the 4 Winds Light the Lamp contests, but this brewery is known for a heck of a lot more than just a light lager. 4 Winds also has a nice, robust lineup of IPAs. Whether you're into something nice and light but packed full of flavor in their 4.5% featherweight IPA, or something a little more funky, fruity, and juicy in their World Beer Cup winning Juxtapose IPA, 4 Winds has something hoppy to quench your thirst. Head to the 4 Winds website to see their full lineup of IPAs and to have them delivered right to your door at 4windsbrewing.ca, locally owned and operated in Delta, British Columbia, over on River Road. River Road's a great name for, like, I was naming a road River Road. Yeah. Like, if we're doing a tier list on road names, which we might do later in the offseason.
I mean, even River District.
You know what, Grady, write it down. That's what we should do, is just write down all the offseason content ideas I have. Number 1 is tier list of roads in the Lower Mainland. Where were we? Oh yeah, the player avails. Okay, so the big thing that I noticed, Elias Pettersson. Everybody wanted to hear from him. Everybody wanted to hear about this injury that we kept hearing whispers about, but that the coaching staff and that Pettersson himself kept coming out and saying, nope, I'm not injured, which, as we said, with the context, every time we heard it was, of course, the player is going to say that during the season. Pettersson reveals. Do we want to play the clip of this, Grady? Like, it's just
nah,
yeah,
we can play the clip of Tocchet talking about why they didn't.
Do we have the second? Yeah, because we'll definitely play Tocchet. Can we get the second clip where Pettersson's talking about why it might be nice to kind of get away?
Yes, we have that.
Okay, so Pettersson said he has a knee injury. Tocchet chalked it up to tendonitis and also spoke about why they didn't shut down Pettersson down the final stretch of the season here. But here is Elias Pettersson.
From January.
Yeah. Exactly. Here is Elias Pettersson talking about his knee injury.
Elias, considering this season, the speculation around your contract, that deal getting done, the injury that you sustained midway through, going into a sort of quieter summer, how much do you welcome that? How can you use that for fuel next season?
Yeah, it will be nice to get a break from everything. Honestly, it's been a very noisy season in terms of contracts and how I've been the last 3 months, you guys said. So it'll be nice to just get a break from that, but I'm just excited to get a little break here and then get back on the horse again, train hard, and come in best shape possible for next season.
That audio is abysmal. Hey?
It was so
Does
quiet.
the job.
No, it doesn't do the job. Not very well. Like, I could hardly understand what was being said there. But anyways, it was so weird. I was there too, and it was quiet in the room.
Well, it was louder for the reporters asking the question.
I know,
than
because the
answer
reporters,
themselves.
we have our mics right here when we're asking questions. We hold the mic right there. The players aren't like, okay, I want to make sure everybody hears this. But anyways, I'm getting off topic once
I
again.
remember when we did the Pettersson extension, I had to like crank all the audio because it was so low. Anyways, that's too inside production stuff.
Yeah, people don't want to hear this. Okay, so Pettersson, knee injury, no real surprise there. It looked like it was something with his lower body. Still doesn't really explain the reason why he didn't shoot the puck for a long stretch of that time, but obviously he just didn't feel like himself. You know, a lot of stuff starts in your lower body, right? Like everything starts in your lower body. So playing through a knee injury like that, you're hoping that he's able to just come back next year and be stronger all season long.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. You could see that with his skating, he lacked dynamic ability carrying through the neutral zone. I think this also perhaps explains why at times down the stretch in the regular season and through the playoffs, it was harder for him to stay on his feet and be really sturdy, because we know over the years that he's bulked up. He's not this soft pushover player. And yet it felt like, okay, he's losing a lot of battles. He's avoiding contact, seems hesitant in some of those physical engagements. Now you can understand if a guy has a bad knee, it is tough to sort of maintain your balance in a lot of those situations. The other area where I think this affected him offensively is, I noticed in the playoffs, a lot of times in the offensive zone, we spoke about how when he'd get touches on the perimeter, he wouldn't be able to make those one-on-one maneuvers against defenders to give himself space to attack into the interior or behind the net. And I think that's where, when you watch Pettersson at his best, it's not just that he has the elite hands that he can stick handle and make these dekes. It's also that a lot of times when let's say he's offensive zone entry, he's skating down the wing, maybe he'll stop up, and then what happens from a defender's perspective is they know that Pettersson can sort of burn you with stick handling. So they're not going to immediately apply pressure on him, but they're going to be very mindful of keeping the guy to the outside.
Yeah.
Now, in those situations, a defender will also stop. Now, when Pettersson's at his best, it's that quick dart from that first step from stop to start. Then he's able to create that space to get behind the net and maybe set up a chance in front. Whereas he lacked, I think, a bit of that pop to make those quick start to stop to start transitions. Without that, it was tough for him to take puck touches from the perimeter and find ways to get to the inside of the offensive zone.
Yeah, we saw so few of that, so little of that, but you're just hoping that next season he can kind of come back from that. That's the thing, is you're just hoping that next season it's behind him. For those wondering, we have some people in the chat asking, he's not getting surgery. He said it's just something that he needs to rest, and rest is going to heal that. So with that in mind, here's Rick Tocchet speaking about why they didn't shut down Elias Pettersson.
Petey came in here a little while ago and said that he was playing with an injured knee. Said that it happened in January and that it got worse as things went on. Was there any consideration to holding him out for a period of time then to potentially letting him rest to be better down the stretch?
Yeah, I think he had some tendonitis. No, you obviously go through the doctors or the trainers, and we felt, it was fine to keep going. But yeah, no, we didn't feel we had to shut him down.
And Patrik, it looked like this team.
And the other guy that we should talk about, like we're going to talk about Demko next, another injury, Brock Besser. Obviously, that one was a little bit more serious. Brock Besser talking about how he had a small blood clot that he was able to play through. Then it turned into a bigger one that they had to be very careful with. And that's why he was ultimately shut down. But he was there answering questions today. I don't think we need to hear the clip, but it was good to hear from Brock Besser today.
We also heard that, Besser didn't mention it, but I believe Murph tweeted it out that he was playing through a broken finger ahead of Game 3 versus Nashville. And it's funny because I was actually in Nashville when that happened. I think he took a shot off the hand. An NHL.com reporter, I believe it was, tweeted it out, and it was mad hysteria. Everybody, this was very soon after the Demko injury, right? So everybody is like, what is going on? Our best players are dropping like flies. Tocchet came out after practice and was sort of like, no, that was just kind of the end of practice. But it's funny that moment that Canucks fans all panicked about, that something did actually happen there. But it makes Besser's playoff run all the more impressive.
Yeah.
That he was able to produce at that high of a level, considering he also had a broken finger as a goal scorer. Like, props to him. And also say this,
not to take anything away, but what finger was it? It's like, come on, not all fingers are made equal.
It's gripping a stick with broken finger, and I know he's probably getting shot up or something, but
it's like a pinky. You don't need your pinky.
Okay, quads, Mr. I played in the NHL.
Dude, I've skated on Rogers Arena. I've shot pucks.
Even receiving passes too, like the vibration through that finger.
I guess that might hurt a little.
Come on, quads.
All right.
It's like when you foul one off quads off the shaft of your bat in baseball. You must have used metal aluminum bats. You know, when you hit the end of it.
Wood hurt way more. Wood bats hurt way more. Anyways,
Depends
we're not talking baseball. Continue. Sorry.
The other thing that really struck me about hearing Brock speak was just he seems like a player that's so hungry and driven in a way that I maybe didn't see when he was younger. Not to insinuate that he was slacking in the past, but there's just a different level of conviction, determination in his tone, his body language when he speaks about the next step, and even reflecting on his season to say that I thought I slowed down in the second half and I want to be more consistent in that area. That's what I'm striving toward, and mentioning how now that he and the team got a taste of playoff hockey and being right there, how that's extra motivation. I love hearing that, because the one thing you always wonder about a player when they have a career best season is, are they going to get slightly comfortable? Are they going to get slightly complacent?
Yeah.
And not even consciously, but sometimes it happens unconsciously, right?
Yeah.
So for Besser to just speak about needing that right mindset, I was very impressed. And also it was good to hear that he's going to be able to still train and skate, that this won't too heavily hinder his off-season workload.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, here's Thatcher Demko. Did you want to say anything about Tocchet Pettersson? I feel like we may have glossed over it a little bit. Like, we got the explanation from the head coach. He's obviously getting it from the medical staff. We don't, like, I don't know. We're going to sit here and be like, oh, bad idea.
Yeah, the other thing to keep in mind is Pettersson was playing for a contract.
Yep.
Which he signed in the first week of March. So from January to first week of March, as a player, you're not going to want to sit out and miss games.
Yep. Also, let's not forget, like, he was still good in January. It was after that.
It was after January. January, he had like 14 goals.
Was he player of the month in January?
I think he might have been the third star.
Yeah. In the NHL.
That's So again, you're right. It is that.
And then the team's playing for the division. I also think it was Pettersson himself mentioned that it's something that got progressively worse.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time you got to, let's say, the last week of the season, maybe the last couple of games, you could say, oh, maybe you want him to sit those out. Maybe I can definitely see the case. But from my understanding, this also wasn't the type of injury where it's like, take 1 week off and it's going to be fixed. So, yeah, I'm not going to sit here and openly criticize how they handled that when we don't even really know the details of.
I got some thoughts on this. Okay. Thatcher Demko talking about his injury and the possibility of returning for round 3.
Obviously, we've been through some tough years here, and finally get the opportunity, and it's always tough watching. So, it was really hard, but I was really close to coming back, and I was looking to probably be available for the next series had we gotten to that point.
But they didn't get to that point. So Thatcher Demko sits there, ready to play hockey, and nowhere to do it. No thoughts, obviously. Like, what are we going to do? What are we going to say? Some of these are just, this is information that our listeners need. We don't need to have a take on everything. Thatcher Demko would have been great to have in Game 7. Wasn't quite ready.
Well, it's just big picture, right? he mentioned how it's the hardest thing he's had to ever deal with as a player. And you think about it from his shoes, right? He and the rest of that core, they've lived through all those dark years where the expectations were for them to make the playoffs, and they just consistently were a laughing stock around the NHL, frankly. So to finally work so hard, get to the point where as a team and individually for Demko as well, to have a terrific regular season, finally get an opportunity in the playoffs, like what a gut punch when you've waited years, like literally since the bubble, to get another opportunity and you get hurt again. Like the other thing to sort of keep in mind with that is, I wonder if this will make him more open-minded, like just how painful it was about, okay, he's dealt with a lot of injuries to this point. Can we find solutions to this when it comes to even, for example, managing his workload? And I know that Demko, much like Jacob Markstrom back in the day, typically he's not a goaltender that wants nights off. Like he wants to play as much as possible. But when a player like that goes through an experience that painful, that might open his mind up to, okay, I'm willing to try things because I don't want to be hurt come playoff time.
And he also said that's a conversation that he'll have to have with Ian Clark, of course, and the coaching staff. I'll give you a take on this, Harm. If I were the coach, or hell, if I were the owner quads is back, I'd march down there and I'd say, yeah, Thatcher is capped at 45, 50 games tops. Can't play more than that. If you play more than that, you're all fired. There you go.
Yeah, you have to set some type of cap, I think.
Yeah, and you also have to threaten people's jobs to make it actually happen. So that's what owner quads would do. And I like this from Alec Taylor. The people are all saying it, Harm. People are listening. The prophecy is coming true. I didn't get a chance to ask him about it, but I'll ask him in training camp. We'll see what happens in training camp. Alec Taylor, Thatcher needs the 2-piece skate. I called it so early on. Everybody thought I was crazy doing these conspiracy theories. Then Kevin Woodley said it and everybody believed it. Yeah. Corey Anderson, 45 starts, bang on quads. Don't know what he's talking about specifically, but I'll take it as bang on quads. Doesn't appear in the chat very often, so I'll take it. And that's the other thing. Wallach also gets exasperated by air travel pressure changes. Like these guys put their bodies through a lot. Your star goaltender, that's a asset you want to keep, especially for this time of year. Like it's almost like we have to switch the way that we think about this team, Harm. And it sure sounded, we're going to get to Alvin and talk in a minute. It sounds like the organization is changing the way they think about competing and about how they need to approach their season. Patrik Allvin opened his press conference by saying he's not happy to be sitting there today. Talked about how you don't get a chance to play in game sevens all the time. And he wanted his team to be further, but look, obviously no surprise there from Patrik Allvin to hear that. But what I'm trying to say is that you need to think about, okay, how are we going to make sure that we have the best chance to win a Stanley Cup when the playoffs come? Thatcher Demko being healthy is a big part of that. If you don't need him in the regular season to play 55, 60 games, then don't. Because ideally, he's going to play 20, 30 more by the time the season comes to an end.
I also think that one thing the Canucks have to be cognizant of, and this is not just Demko, but bigger picture, Connor Garland referenced this as well, is they're no longer going to be surprising anybody as a team in the regular season.
Right. Yep.
They're going to have targets on their back, might be too strong of a word or of a phrase.
Let's just be frank here.
They're going to be on everybody's radar.
We've both talked to visiting players about this in the past, and I think visiting players have been pretty open with it, and it's been clear in years past. Good teams don't take the Canucks seriously historically. In the past, and historically, I should say, in the past like 5-10 years. Good teams don't take the Canucks seriously.
It's also like it's an 82 game season. A lot of contending teams, they're trying to make sure that they have juice left in the tank for the playoffs, right? So you can't approach every game out of 82 with playoff style intensity.
And the Canucks always had to do that historically down the final stretch of the season because, oh my gosh, we're only 6 points out. Time to run Demko into the ground. Time to run Markstrom into the ground. Like, it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. And the Canucks, yes, like you said, like Connor Garland said, it's just a different outlook on this team from here on out.
And so next season, it also means like the challenge, for example, with managing Demko's workload, it might be more difficult than it was this season when they still had an issue with that, because think about how early the Canucks basically had a playoff spot wrapped up. How it was like
it was November, months. And people were like, "Quads, you're jinxing it." When I was saying, "Oh yeah, they've got a playoff spot. This is great." Like mid-November, I was saying it.
Well, even after like November, they had some like they had that stretch where they were playing out 500 hockey, but after they rebounded in December, at that point you're like they're basically a lock for the playoffs. That may not be a guarantee next season, right? Who knows, right? You may end up with injuries.
How does the season start?
You don't know. And so, what if you're in a situation where January, February, even March, you're still fighting for a playoff spot or to avoid, let's say you want to finish top 3 in the division rather than just be in a wild card spot. That's going to make it even harder to, in your mind, like you're going to be thinking, oh, we want to play Thatcher as much as possible, but you're going to need to have that discipline to stick to the plan.
Yep. We have some questions about this, and it's explained pretty well by another listener in our chat, just talking about why can't PD come out months ago and say he has tendonitis or that he's dealing with a knee issue? And someone else said below that, because then D-bags like Marchand chop block your weak knee to end your season. And that's the thing. You don't have to say, yeah, specifically it's a knee, but if you say you're dealing with something, okay, opposing players are gonna be like, all right, let's figure out what it is, right? Like, it doesn't have to be, oh, I said it was my knee, so they're chopping at my knee. If you say, yeah, I'm injured, I'm playing through something, like, all right, let's figure it out. Is it your wrist? Tap. Is it your knee? Tap.
Pre-scouting for playoffs, especially, like the amount of video that teams chew through about their opposition, like if they hear this guy's banged up, they're going to be watching an ungodly amount of tape to figure out, oh, he seems to be wincing in this situation, or, oh, look at that shot of him on the bench. Looks like this part of his body may be affected. Like, you're just opening up a can of worms, and it may not affect you as heavily in, let's say, the regular season, but come playoff time, when teams have days to prepare and the entire staff is laser focused on this matchup, they're going to do everything in their power to find out what exactly it is and exploit it.
All right, Nikita Zadorov did everything in his power to make sure he's never welcome in any part of Alberta ever again, with this answer when he was talking about Canucks fans.
Summer and some uncertainty in terms of where things are going for you with a contract needed.
So just a personal question, yeah. I mean, it's been great. Obviously, getting traded to one of the top teams in the league, and just to get a chance to play with these guys. I mean, it was unbelievable. About 5-6 months for me. You know, I had fun every day. You know, it's awesome when you can do what you love, and then you also come to the rink and you enjoy in the group of the guys in here. You know, like past month, it's been so much enjoyment and fun, and just a great hockey, great time spending together on the road and at home. You know, so it's been. I mean, I'm proud of the guys. I'm proud of our team, where we achieved through the whole year and where we are right now. Obviously, we feel like, well, in this room, feel like we fell a little bit short at the end of the day. But it's been unbelievable experience in here. Nothing to complain about ever.
All right. Thoughts?
I love it. We didn't even get the part where
the pricing himself here. Let's hear it. I actually have an audio over here.
Why you think I priced myself out of here?
Well, maybe your contract may have gone
up. How much you think I should be making? Yeah, like you guys, I don't know where you get those numbers from, the trees. Yeah, I don't know. It's you got to stop listening to Edmonton reporters who's reporting the contract negotiating. It's only between my agent and Patrik, and obviously I'll love here. Hopefully we can work something out.
Do we have the one on Calgary where he just crap? So first he took the shot. Okay, so first he takes the shot at the Edmonton reporters, which was right there that we just heard.
We don't.
And then he later is talking about Canucks fans. And my apologies, folks. I thought we had a different clip, but he's later talking about how great Canucks fans are. And then he says it doesn't really compare to Calgary because Calgary's not even the biggest team in Alberta.
Well, okay, it wasn't that direct. It was more he started with speaking about how in a Canadian market it's always different.
Yes. And then he went down that
and then he like went through his thoughts, like it was as if he was just like working through his thoughts live and was just sharing through it, where he's like, well, Canada's always different, but I guess with Calgary they're not even the biggest team in Alberta, and he just says it out loud. And it was hilarious.
I'm sitting there and I'm watching Connor Garland at the end of the table just shaking his head. And I tweeted that out too, because that was what I found the funniest about that was Connor Garland's just sitting there like, holy cow, this guy just can't stop making headlines. Oh, it was good. It was good stuff.
By the way, when that Hronek J-Pad exchange happened, speaking of player reactions, Ian Cole,
Oh, so good.
so good.
He had to look down and just like he was wearing a hat. You could just tell he was losing it.
Okay. Do you guys want to get to the Alvin Tocchet presser? Or is there anything else from player avails that you wanted to get to? Nils Amon went up there today. Yeah, nothing else?
Let me look through.
Oh no, this is Alvin. Sorry.
So with the UFAs, right? So Myers said he'd love to come back. Joshua said he wants to stay. Blueger and Cole.
Elias Lindholm
basically ducked the contract question and said he's gonna wait to talk to his agent. Doesn't really hasn't really thought about it yet. That to me doesn't sound like a player who's going to take a discount.
All these
if
other
the Canucks
players
tried to re-sign him.
Yeah, I love living in Vancouver. I love Yaletown. I love the seawall. I love this. Elias Lindholm. Yeah, I like the seawall, but I like money a hell of a lot more.
Well, that's just.
And hey, that's not a knock on Elias Lindholm.
In fairness, he didn't spend a ton of time here, right? Yeah. So it's not quite the same as Myers and Joshua, where they spent multiple seasons here, or even Bluger and Cole, where they spent at least the entire year here. So I kind of understand it, but sometimes during player avails, you can get a sense of like, okay, maybe this guy is going to be willing to take a little bit less just because he loves it here so much.
Yeah.
Not getting that feeling from Lindholm. And again, that's not to say that he wouldn't be open to the possibility of re-signing here. Just don't bank on a significant discount.
Yeah, like he's a free agent on July 1, and we knew this was gonna be a potential outcome for him to walk when they made the trade, right? So anyways, I like
even Zadorov, like this is a subtle thing, but him mentioning how much his kids and family loved it in Vancouver. Like those are little things that do matter. Now dollars and term matter more for players at the end of the day, but if you end up with similar offers between a couple of teams, like those things do matter in terms of lifestyle and knowing that your family likes it in a particular location. So that was good to hear for Canucks fans that want to see Zadorov back, that okay, he seems to genuinely have enjoyed it, even though he only spent since November here.
I'm appreciating that we had all these avails today, because I'm just remembering, was it last year or 2 years ago that there was also that marathon that happened?
Yeah, I remember.
And you remember Luke Shen just didn't come, and then he hit free. Like Luke Shen never did a final avail. He just went to free agency. Do you remember this?
No, I don't remember that.
Luke Shen opened his front door, saw that there was a marathon outside, and said, yeah, I'm not driving to the rink, and went back inside, called the Canucks, and said, I'm not doing final season media avails.
Dude, I remember, I didn't know the run was happening, so I get in my car.
I missed it. I missed the whole thing.
Dude, I was like 40 minutes late. It was like, you're normally a 15-minute commute to the rink.
Yep.
It ended up being an hour and 15.
I'm not going to give marathon takes on the show. But I was cursing that marathon. Like I went to every bridge to get. I was like, "How do I get into downtown Vancouver?" And they're like, "You can't, because there's runners."
Yeah,
Start running your way through them, Quads.
I might have. I've started running. It's been interesting. We'll save the running.
Real
tape.
athlete.
Put it down for the off season. Okay. Let's get to the Rick Tocchet, Patrik Allvin presser. We didn't hear from Jim Rutherford today. We probably will at some point, but probably not in an assembled media setting. Maybe get mixed on Canucks Convo. Call up Jim Rutherford. Anyways, okay. Allvin and Tocchet. What did you guys want to get to here specifically? Because one thing that I wanted to start with was the need for getting a top six forward. Allvin talked about how it would be nice to get one, but a couple things on this same topic. He was asked point blank about Ilya Mikheyev and his struggles this year. And one thing Allvin said was, it's not Ilya Mikheyev's fault that he was a top six player. It's my fault. So obviously talking about roster construction and not doing enough to, fill that top six where Ilya Mikheyev was kind of thrust into that role. Called him a good middle six player and gave him a huge vote of confidence for next season. And I know this whole week I've been saying, well, they need to buy out Ilya Mikheyev. Certainly doesn't sound like that's going to be the plan based on, but also didn't he say a similar answer about Oliver Ekman-Larsson?
Oh, yeah.
So maybe Patrik Allvin's just keeping him close to the chest.
They said they weren't going to buy him out last year.
Didn't they say point blank, we will not buy him out?
I think so.
See, if I was the owner, I'd be like, yeah, you are. Yeah, you're spending the money. I have money. You're spending it on this. I don't know if that's exactly what happened, but if I were owner Quads, that's where I'd go. And if I were owner Quads, I would also say no, buy this guy out for Ilya Mikheyev. But in fairness, and we're just doing what was said today, he talked about how he's a good penalty killer, good middle six guy, and how they're really thinking he can bounce back next year and get some of that speed back. I think it's a safe bet for an Ilya Mikheyev bounce back season. I just think it's safer to execute a buyout because you're saying middle six. Okay, great. Is he going to score? No. Is he going to be this defensive dynamo? Yeah, kind of, but you can get those for cheaper than what you'd be paying him, and your cap savings with a buyout as well. I don't want to get it. I don't want to just hone in on Mikheyev, but I found it interesting.
I
that
think we should point out one thing though with that is that sometimes with those particular injuries, it can take up to 2 full years to fully recover.
So you're telling me I have to wait another year?
100% level.
Are you telling me I have to wait another year?
September.
But also,
there is a chance. Sorry, Harm. There is a chance. Like I think there is a world where we have to prepare. Is that they will try to squeeze as much out of them as they possibly can, and whether that means he gets back to, look, Harm, you had the stats yesterday about the 5-on-5 production. Maybe not to that level, but something more than we saw than those shots to the crest or just kind of shooting it wide or taking it wide with his speed.
But also sometimes you just don't gain that step back.
Yeah.
Look at Antoine Roussel. He was great in his first season as a Canuck, tore his ACL, and he was never the same player again. Like it's hit and miss. Sometimes guys do get it back. They bounce back. Sometimes they don't. It's not. So yes, there's definitely a chance he'll bounce back. And compared to the second half, I mean, the bar is literally at the floor.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
There's only one way to go, and that's up. But again, sometimes guys don't really get back to, especially if they're in their later 20s, they don't get back to being that same player after such a severe injury.
At some point, though, we do have to do a deeper dive on, trading him, retaining Sally versus the full-on buyout, because there's definitely some things you can kind of weigh on all sides and try to make your argument for either side.
ACLs are so interesting. Like it was such an innocent looking play. Like you remember the play where he got hurt? Like he got hit. I don't know who hit him. It was on Calgary in a preseason game. Got hit in the corner. Looked so innocent, didn't like clutch his knee or like go down and be like, nothing like that. Like it looked so innocent. And then you find out he's playing with this torn ACL. It's such a freak injury, those ACLs.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. I also love Alvin in that answer, taking accountability. Right?
Yes.
That's what you want to hear from a GM instead of making excuses, right? How many times in the past would a Canucks season go down the drain and
Often.
Jim Benning would step up to the podium and say, injuries and this and that. Or do you remember in the all Canadian division year where he was like, we had no preseason. It's like, remember. Jim, nobody had preseason.
Yes, I remember that, Harmon. Why do you have to bring that back up?
But it's just like, it's refreshing to hear GM say, hey, it's on me.
And this is why he's going to win. Well, he might win the GM of the Year award. He was nominated for it this morning. That officially came down from the league. For whatever reason, they announced all the finalists. And then in the case of the Jack Adams, they announced the winner like a month before the actual award show for whatever reason. But Rick Tocchet takes home the Jack Adams award, and Patrik Allvin is a finalist for the Jim Gregory General Manager of the Year award. And I liked, Alvin continues to look good in these pressers, and it's obviously easy to look good when your team is winning, but there's just this level of, we need to get better. We need to keep building. And it's not like, did you guys see what we just did this year? That was awesome. Imagine Jim Benning Canucks have this year. Oh, well, we won the Pacific Division, just going through the accolades.
It's also throughout the season too, when, let's be honest, 15 months ago, whatever specific time frame you want to put on this, people had no confidence in this management regime.
Yeah.
It looked like they're in trouble again. Are they going to have to retool? They weren't going to rebuild, but it looked like their plan was potentially in trouble. I didn't have a lot of faith. A lot of us were critical.
They navigated it perfectly.
And well, not only that, but Alvin didn't take any victory laps.
Yeah.
And he was
He could have. Dude,
Not just that, but he was given questions where it was like put up on a tee for him that, hey, nobody thought you guys would be this good.
Yeah.
People thought you guys should have retooled and rebuilded. And he never took the bait. He never took a victory lap, which again speaks to this idea of, I think, a mentality where even in the season, I bet he's thinking, well, we haven't accomplished what we need to yet. We haven't won the division yet or whatever it is. And now that they have won the division, had some playoff success, now I'm sure he's thinking, well, we didn't get to the conference final. We didn't get to the Stanley Cup final. We still have so many areas we need to improve. And that's really respectable.
If I were him, I would have created a compilation of everybody doubting me and airplayed it on the TV behind me during the press conference. And I want to give it one of these, just a quick little move over. And like, I'm glad you're all here today. Scroll through. There's
You
Thomas,
tweeted this.
There's Thomas Drance.
Harm, you tweeted this.
There's Harmon Dial. There's David Quadrell. Oh, it's all of you. It's all of you. You all at one point or other said something about me and my management group, and I would just scroll, and that would be the press conference. I wouldn't take questions. I would just show everybody, and then I'd walk away.
Instead of an opening statement, an opening slideshow.
Yeah, opening slideshow
Of receipts.
Yeah, here's everything I did this year. Here's how my season went. Okay. Yeah, really liked how Alvin came out of that press conference looking. I mean, we've been saying that basically since he's been hired. He's navigated things well, and yeah, kudos to Patrik Allvin. The thing I like the most, Harm. Do we have this answer about finding the next Dakota Joshua? We probably don't. No, it's okay. It's okay. So what he said was he was asked by Drance about the importance of Dakota Joshua to this team.
I don't think it was even just directly about Joshua, was it? It was
it
also
was
about size and
wasn't it about Joshua?
I may have misheard.
Here it is from Farhan. He says, interesting comment from Alvin when discussing the process of identifying and developing Dakota Joshua and the idea of finding the next Dakota Joshua. And then Sat had a similar thing, basically in reference to wanting to sign free agents. But the reality is that there's going to be changes, and yes, that they got to look.
I think it was broader free agents.
Okay, sure.
And then he specifically spoke about Joshua's development, and then of course said like we're going to need to find the next Dakota Joshua.
Yeah, you can't just pay guys what they want after exceeding expectations.
And that's the really nice thing, because you're hearing a GM say this when it feels like the last GM would be like, why would I want the next Dakota Joshua? I have the Dakota Joshua right there. I could just sign him.
Yeah, I also it's interesting because on the one hand, Joshua is a unique player type where it is going to be very challenging to find that player on a league minimum or a sub $1 million contract, because it's not just the size and the physicality, it's the scoring ability, it's the penalty killing, it's trust that you can have in a playoff environment to, hey, you're going to be on line with Elias Lindholm and Connor Garland, and we're going to use you against Leon Draisaitl. It's hard to find those guys at a bargain price. So I can understand the potential interest to keep him. But on the other hand, if he's going to be pushing $3.5, maybe even $4 million cap hit on a long-term deal, you can't get overly attached. You can't get married to supporting cast pieces and overpay them. And so you do need to, even if it's going to be difficult, at least have the mentality that, okay, we have faith in our pro scouting and that we're going to try our best to replace some of these players at a cheaper cost.
And in all seriousness, like as much as we poke fun at the last management regime and everything, like how could Jim Benning come out and say, yeah, I'm really confident in my pro scouting staff? How could he say that? Like he couldn't say that at basically any juncture of his tenure. Like you can't come out and have that quote because you can't be confident that you can go find the next Dakota Joshua because you never found the first one.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's, I mean, I don't want to go rehashing mistakes, but it's just funny reflecting on how they thought Tanner Pearson was indispensable.
Yes.
And how instead of moving him for like a first round pick at the deadline, potentially the same year that Nick Foligno went for a first round pick.
Yes.
They were like, oh no, we can't lose this guy.
Better give him term.
And then what was the quote? It was, well, his agent said that's what he would have got on the free agent.
Oh, Jim. Quickly, AFP Analytics has Joshua projected at 4 years, $3.25 million on his next contract.
You think
that's light?
Well, it's not light. Sorry. I should I think there's a possibility he could get more if there's
Yeah.
like a team that like really falls in love. Because again, you look at the Engvall contract.
Yeah.
Look at the term that Nick Paul got, right? Both guys got, I think, 7 years, maybe even 8. Either way,
Yeah.
they got a ton of term.
Yep.
The Colton Sissons contract in Nashville, like more term, little less on the AAV. And another thing too to factor it is that some states that take more with their state tax, that can also change up the contract, which this AFP analytics model does take into consideration. They have kind of different projections. Pretty interesting stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a lot of time to talk about free agents. Sticking with this avail. The most interesting thing for me was Alvin talking about top 6 winger, like going out and getting one and going out and finding the next Dakota Joshua. Like he said, everything you want to hear from your general manager heading into the offseason. I will say this, I would be absolutely stunned if this team wasn't at least looking at Jake Gensel on July 1.
Oh yeah.
Like they were linked to him all the way to the deadline. Here's a question we actually got in anyone else yesterday that we didn't touch on. And I wanted to ask you, and I remember it actually. I don't remember who asked it, so I apologize, but it was a regular listener of the show. Do you think the Canucks regret trading for Elias Lindholm rather than Jake Gensel? I say no, because the things Lindholm ended up doing well for them, even down the stretch when he wasn't producing much offensively. Like, yes, he wasn't that winger you wanted for Elias Pettersson, but with the knowledge of the knee injury and everything, how different is Elias Pettersson if he has Jake Gensel instead of whoever else he played with down the stretch?
Probably still pretty different, but I think the stronger argument to defend this management regime for that, and I have no problem with it at all.
Yeah, it's just a
They should
hindsight
have no
question.
regrets at all.
Yeah.
The bigger thing is still wasn't available when the Canucks went out and made that Lindholm trade because Pittsburgh hadn't decided yet. Are we in the playoff race? They were still in the playoff race. So it's like they hadn't decided, are we keeping him? Are we trading him? And from a Canucks standpoint, they didn't want to wait until the last week before the deadline.
Yeah.
And what happens if, let's say at that point, Lindholm's off the board, Monahan's off the board, a lot of the top names are gone, and you're holding out hope for Gensel. I mean, in another scenario, look at the late push Pittsburgh made. What if they had decided to keep him, or you get outbid? Like, that would have been a risky proposition to wait it out for a player that may not have wasn't even a guarantee to hit the market. So yeah, I mean, there's no issue with going out and getting Lindholm. He was the third best forward arguably in the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. I absolutely agree with you. Okay, let's take a quick break here. I got to tell you about the Daily Face-Off Playoff Parlay Challenge. And I did not do my picks for Grady. So I apologize for that, Grady, but I'll do them live. Let's do them together. We're going to play the game with you and our listeners. Our listeners are going to be on a bit of a delay, so they're not going to have much say. But I was wrong yesterday. Today, Edmonton at Dallas. Who wins?
Dallas.
Okay. Over, under, including overtime. Under 6.5 or over 6.5? Total goals.
You pick this one.
Under. First goal, going to Dallas. I'm going with Dallas. Highest scoring period, I'm going to say the third period is the highest scoring period. Total assists for Miro Heiskanen, over. Total assists for Connor McDavid, under. Chris Tam's going to shut you down. Zach Hyman, total goals, yeah, he'll score a goal. Wyatt Johnson, total goals, he will also score a goal. And there you go. And my tiebreaker.
That's bold, though. What was the over-under on McDavid assists?
1.5.
1.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, if you're betting on Hyman to score, but chances are if he scores, McDavid's picking up an assist. But if it's 1.5, that's still possible. So
that's a good thinking. You should play the game.
That's a hard game, man. I don't know how you win that parlay. So many individual things you have to get right.
If you do, I'll tell you what can happen. Daily winners snag gift cards, while each round's champs pocket cash. Play now at games.dailyfaceoff.com and prove your puck prowess. It's fast, it's fun, and it's all about hockey. It's going all playoffs long, folks. So be sure to go check out the Daily Faceoff Playoff Parlay Challenge. Okay, we're going to get to anyone else in a moment here. But first, I need to tell you about... Oh, no, I don't even need to tell you about Wendy's. We told you about them yesterday. Go check out Wendy's, but we'll tell you about them again tomorrow. We don't need to talk about them today. Love me some Wendy's. Go get yourself some Wendy's. But we're going to take a quick break here before anyone else. Here's a word from the BC government. Time now for a word from helpstartshere.gov.bc.ca. We've all heard of the overdose crisis, also known as the toxic drug crisis, but did you know that it affects men disproportionately? Last year, 78% of people dying here in BC were men, and the majority were 30 to 59 years old. It's not easy to struggle with addiction, and the stigma around it can make it harder for people to reach out for help. But there is help and support available. Every journey is different, and the thing that helps might not be the same for everyone. So when someone does reach out, be compassionate and have open, non-judgmental conversations. We here at Canucks Conversation want to be part of the solution. So if you or someone you care about is struggling, you can find supports and services near you at helpstartshere.gov.bc.ca. You can also watch powerful real-life stories of recovery on the Help Starts Here website.
Presented by the Vancouver Canadians. The great spring weather is here, and it's time to get out to the net to catch your Vancouver Canadians in action. The Seas are on the road, but have a 6-game homestand starting on Tuesday, May 28th, which includes a superstar appearance by Buck Martinez on the 28th, a nooner at the net on Friday, May 31st, and a family fun Sunday on June 2nd. Catch fireworks, giveaways, Friday nooners, and superstar appearances all spring and summer long. To get your tickets, call 604-872-5232 or go to canadiansbaseball.com.
People want you to project Jake Gensel's contract on July 1. Grady, what does that AFP analytics say about Gensel? You find that for us?
Yes.
Yeah,
Give
you
me a
find that
sec.
for us.
I want to say it's like 9.3.
I was going to say, I bet that number starts with a 9.
Like you actually on July 1, you think he signs for something that starts with a 9?
Yeah.
Yep. Who's the comparable?
I haven't dug comparables yet.
Tomas Hertl comes up. Or no, not Tomas Hertl. Who am I thinking of? Who's the other guy? The other scrub.
What?
Timo Meier. Timo Meier. That's who I'm thinking of.
He got 8. But also he was an RFA when he signed. I don't think those
and also
are...
Jake Gensel's a lot better.
7 times 9.2.
So if Timo Meier 7.9, what? So if Timo Meier gets 8.8,
oh,
Jake
you got 8.8.
Yeah, you got 8.8. Jake Gensel needs to get 9, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I said I expected that
clutch.
number to start with a 9.
I said. So did the Canucks sign that then, Harm?
Ooh, how are they fitting that?
How are they fitting that?
You can, but you're going to have to make hard decisions elsewhere.
See you later, Philip Hronik.
And you may need to consider
Trading
that's
Philip
where,
Hronik.
well, that or
buying out
Mikheyev, finding a suitor for him
I was gonna say
potentially.
Hronik. Buying out Hronik.
But you're gonna have to cut costs somewhere else though, because this is a challenge for the Canucks this offseason is you're trying to get both better and effectively cheaper at the same time. Because if you just kept the same team as is, right, you'd be way over cap, right? If you signed all your guys at market value. So that's probably the toughest thing to do in the NHL is just to improve, staying under or just to stay at the same level whilst remaining under the cap is difficult on its own. Now you're trying to get better. Like that's incredibly daunting. But of course, the Canucks had a terrific offseason last summer. They're going to need another magical summer to pull off this type of turnaround. And look, if you're going to go out and sign Gensel, that also means like you're going to have to be really cheap in filling out your third line.
Yeah.
They have 10 players signed. 10 forwards signed for next year. Elias Pettersson, JT Miller, Brock Besser, Connor Garland, Ilya Mikheyev, Pius Suter, Nils Höglander, Vasily Podkolzin, Nils Amon. And Phil Giuseppe.
The bigger thing is you've only got you got half your blue line that needs to be filled in essentially.
Literally,
Your
over
only
half.
your only RD under contract for next season is Noah Juleson.
Oh, okay. I didn't know it was that good. I thought it was a bleak situation.
Top 4, Noah Juleson. Harm, who would you rather have? Gensel at 9.2 or Sam Reinhart at, where is it here? 8 million for 11.2.
I bet you that Reinhardt's staying in Florida, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like that's just such good of a fit for them. Plus no state tax, lifestyle, they're in a contending team. Like the writing just seems to be on the wall that he's going to stay there. Like he hasn't really registered in my mind as like that's a legit option until he actually gets to July 1st. I'm not looking at that in my mind as like that's part of our game plan.
I'm not going to lie to you. Like the hometown thing, like where does he vacation? He probably lives in Kelowna.
I have
West
seen
Van
him in.
He lives in West Van?
Well,
Yeah,
it's
from
perfect.
there, West.
We don't need to dive into it. What I'm saying is that's quite the setup. You live in West Van during the summer. You're in your ivory tower in West Van, and then you fly to Florida as soon as it starts raining in Vancouver, and then you come back.
Yeah, but no state tax in Florida. It's
That's what I'm
always
saying.
fun.
It's a solid setup.
Sorry, right. I thought you were, my bad. I thought you were making the case that, he'd want to come
Don't
play
they
here.
have to pay taxes in Canada too, though?
It's complex, the tax code, but yes, it's like based off. So like the 41 games that you play at home, you're going to get taxed Florida where there's no state tax. And then the other 41, you're taxed
Interesting.
based off like, you played X amount of games in the state of New York, or you play
Wow.
this number of games in Canada. Like I've done a real look at it. There's actually
I was gonna say we should get an accountant.
there's actually
to guest on the show.
there's a calculator for this. I'll pull it up right now.
Pull it up.
This is from Gavin Hockey Wealth Specialists. So
Wow.
let's go hypothetically a $10 million
Is that
annual
who
salary.
you use?
So let's compare Florida and Vancouver here, hypothetically.
This is so fun.
We're doing this live.
We're doing this live. I love
Do
it.
it live.
How many goals?
So the
get
difference
set-
in
Yeah,
tax
sorry.
paid would come out to be you'd net $1.6 million more per year.
by playing in Florida as opposed to Vancouver.
Yes.
Wow.
Not me. I'm not wealthy.
Okay. So it's interesting. It's an interesting conversation. And that's the thing. That's the fun thing about the offseason is there's going to be a lot of these conversations about like, this free agent, that free agent. Also, Grady, I'm frozen on the broadcast
Yeah,
and I'm pretty
our
funny.
Computer's frozen here.
You're back.
I'm back. Okay. Yeah. Should the Canucks make a serious offer to Reinhardt? Reinhardt is from?
Yeah. I mean, if he's going to be more
If
expensive than
he hits free agency.
yeah, if he hits free agency, Gensel has a longer track record of being an elite goal scorer.
Mhm.
Like I still, even though
Didn't play in
Reinhardt
Pittsburgh,
had
though.
57 goals, Gensel also proved with his run in Carolina that he can produce away from Sidney Crosby.
Yeah.
25 points in 17 games down the stretch in the regular season. He continued piling up goals in the playoffs. Again, like cost-wise, you're probably going to have to pay more for Reinhardt than Gensel because if he can make $9 million or something in Florida, what you're going to have to pay 10 and a half potentially for him to come to Canada. And I'm just spitballing numbers here, but I mean, look, if Reinhardt's number was around Gensel's number, they're both cap hit starts with a 9, then sure you can consider it. They're close enough as players, but realistically, I expect that Reinhardt is either A, going to stay in Florida, or B, you're probably going to have to pay a little bit more for a guy that is coming off a 57 goal season.
Absolutely. 57 goals. I actually didn't know he scored 57. Like I knew he hit 50. Didn't know it finished at 57. Brandon Montour. People throwing out Brandon Montour as a perfect D partner for Quinn Hughes.
Seen a lot of that in Brett Pesci.
Well,
last
with
few years.
Montour, I mean, he's a guy that you're going to have to pay $8 million. So do you want to pay $8 million for Brandon Montour? Because
Okay,
look,
hang on a sec.
stylistically,
Hang on a sec.
Okay.
You can get into your stylistic stuff. You have two pills. One is the Philip Hronek pill at 8x8. And then there's the Brandon Montour pill, which is 7 years by $8 million. Which one are you eating?
that's a tough one because
You can do it
Hronek
if
is
you have
4
to.
years younger,
Yeah.
right? So on a long-term deal, that matters. Right now, I'd say Montour's probably a better player. He brings a physical element. He has an unbelievable shot. He's a better skater.
Who fits better with Quinn Hughes right now?
Probably Montour.
Okay, so I'm
But
gonna
it's
give
not
you-
by a huge margin though.
I'm going to give you my take.
And also, too, what are you getting back if you're trading Hronek? That's got to be factored in.
I'm going to give you my take a little bit here. If the Canucks are truly operating as a team that wants to win the Stanley Cup, teams identify when their competitive windows are. And when the JT Miller contract was signed, the big criticism was JT Miller is going to be ineffective by the time the Canucks competitive windows open. If it's open right now and you've got JT Miller on this number, that Miller contract's only going to look good for the next 3-4 years of it, maybe. Like the back half of it's not going to look great. But again, This isn't a knock on Miller. This isn't a, I don't think he can play into his late 30s. It's just this is how NHL teams operate. You want to maximize what you're getting during those best years. If your first 4 years of the Montour contract are going to be better than the first few years of the Hronek contract, then you go with Montour, in my opinion.
But the thing you have to keep in mind is, well, with Hronek as well. I don't know if many people saw this. Hronek denied playing through injury, but Murph reported that he actually indeed was.
Called it a fib,
right? So that's an important sort of explanation as we dissect Hronek, sort of his play falling off a cliff.
But I'm sorry, are we also pretending that he was good defensively even when he was putting up those numbers?
Sure, but Montour is not a defensive stud either.
Not a stud, still better than Philip Hronek.
Not. I don't know. They're pretty comparable defensively. Like neither one of them is exactly a stalwart in their own end.
Yeah. Okay.
It's also like one guy is.
All I'm saying is Brandon Montour puts up similar
tough,
numbers if he plays
look,
Quinn
it's
Hughes.
easy to say this if you're like playing EA NHL GM mode, right? But like, put it this way. Let's walk through logistically how this would work. So what, you're going to the last week of June trade Hronek before you even are guaranteed of signing Montour? Well, what happens if he doesn't sign with you?
I'm sorry, are we doing this? We're doing this where teams don't know who they're... Patrik Allvin's going to know who he's getting on July 1 by next week.
Dude, it doesn't always work like that. Sometimes it does, but not always.
All right.
All I'm saying is if you want to pull off a maneuver like that, like you better be damn sure you're getting the player, and not just getting the player, but getting the player at the right. Because what if that happens? Let's say I have a handshake agreement with you. I represent Brendan Montour, and I'm like, yeah, he'll come to Vancouver. You trade Philip Hronek, and I'm like, well, buddy, these guys just offered me this. Price is going way higher than what we like handshook about.
Are you asking me what owner Quad's response to that would be?
Yeah.
Oh, buddy, you don't want to know.
Then you're
okay. Let's play this out.
You're looking at that next wave, though. Is that Brett Pesce? Is that Matt Roy?
That's the thing. You've got the backups there, but that's the thing. Those guys might have agreements elsewhere. So I hear what you're saying, Harm. I do. I really do.
I'm just saying it's not as easy as just saying, well, just trade Hronek, get a great return for him,
it's
and
a
sign
lot of
Montour.
fantasy land. Absolutely.
I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's
you got to be pretty damn
terms.
Sure. Yeah.
It's harder to maneuver to make steps line up with the right timing, so that you're not potentially exposing yourself and leaving a situation where you can be taken advantage of either by another team or by an agent. Player.
Yeah. You'd have to just send the message that you're not to be taken advantage of, and I won't talk about that.
Well, let me throw this one at you guys. AFP Analytics, again, citing them a lot today. They have Hronek projected at 7 years for 7.4, and these were updated not too long ago. Or a shorter term contract, 3 years at 6.1. Is there a world where Hronek takes a shorter term deal to possibly?
I don't know about that, but I think if you're the Canucks, you're fine with either of those.
I don't think that shorter term 6 point whatever is a realistic scenario.
No, I don't think either of those are happening. But the Canucks would love to sign those, I think.
And I'm sure we'll do like a proper deep dive into the Hronek situation. Like there's a lot that I want to pick the brains of other NHL execs about, like, how would you approach this situation? I also want to nail down like what exactly is his ARB case going to be. Like, just like I briefly sort of floated the idea by one agent maybe like a month ago who sort of threw out maybe high 6 to 7 sort of being the 1 year reward that he would get, and then that of course tracks with, okay, well, if you're going to also then buy UFA years on a long-term deal, like the cap hit goes up from there. But then also diving deeper into like what would his potential trade value be when teams know that he's got this massive contract coming up. Diving deeper into what are the other potential free agents out there? What exactly could they cost? How would they fit? Like, there's a lot to unpack here. It's not going to be an easy situation for the Canucks to maneuver and work through.
Yep, and we'll talk about it more tomorrow, because tomorrow is our off-season primer show. We're going to look at the Canucks off-season, how much cap space they have, answer a lot of questions about the Canucks offseason. But we'll close out today's show on our Bet365 bet of the day. Folks, we're going for it. Dallas Stars to take game 1 minus 130 on the money line. That, of course, brought to you by Bet365, a proud partner of Canucks Conversation. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets, whatever the sport, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code VANBONUS when you sign up for an account. It must be 90 plus play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. All right, let's I love this. This is from Shea Guevara 9 in the chat. Funny to hear one in brackets 120 soaking wet quads talk about sending a message. Like it's my Dude, who was it? Someone used to have the joke that when I walked around with Faber, you seen The Godfather? You know Luca Brasi? Okay, so Luca Brasi was this big, like, he was the muscle for the Corleone family in The Godfather. And it was JD Burke. JD Burke used to call Faber Luca Brasi. So that made me laugh. Anyways, thanks for watching, folks. We appreciate it. And we'll be back tomorrow to give you an off-season primer of the Vancouver Canucks 2024 off-season. Enjoy the weather. We'll chat with you tomorrow. For my co-host, Harmon Dial, and our technical producer, Grady Sass, my name is Dave Quadrelli. Thank you so much for listening to the episode of the Canucks Conversation. Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.